Operations role. What an exciting role, isn't it? But equal to that excitement, there are a lot of confusion prevailing in the market about operations role within supply chain. So in this video, I am going to clear all those confusions surrounding the operations role within supply chain. Hello everyone, I am Alvis Lazarus, your supply chain mentor from supplychainway.com. So in this video, what we are going to see are operations role in supply chain, nature of these roles, and routines of these roles. So let's get it started. I'm sure you are familiar with this supply chain model. If you're not, then please go to the description in this video. I have given few links to the prerequisite videos. You can go through those videos and then come back and watch this video so you get a continuity on the topic. So this is the overall supply chain model. And there are so many different operations role within this overall supply chain. And the point to note here is each of these roles are unique and they are completely different from each other. So let's start with the first role, which is the supply chain planning. So the objective of supply chain planning is effectively aligning the supply and the demand. And if you see supply chain planning, there are clearly two distinctive roles within supply chain planning. One is a demand planning, one is a supply planning. In many organizations, these roles are combined and called as a supply chain planner, but there are few organizations where demand planner is separate and supply planner is separate. So in organizations where the scale of operations is really high is where the supply planner role is split into two roles, demand planner and supply planner. What is the nature of job of a demand planner? You may even ask a question, the forecast is given by a different department, and what would be the role of a demand planner? When a forecast is given, the job is just consolidating and releasing a demand forecast. That is absolutely a wrong understanding of demand planner role. Before I even explain you what is a demand planner role, I can very confidently say the one role within this entire supply chain which can impact every single activity which is happening within the supply chain. Not just that, a slightest miss can mislead the entire supply chain. That role is a demand planner role. That crucial is the demand planner's role. I'll tell you why as well. So the job of demand planner is not just receive the forecast, consolidate and give. The crucial part of the demand planner's role is validating the forecast. So how you will validate? You will use the past sales data, number one. You will also use your analytical capability to estimate what the sales is going to be. I use the word analytically. So you are going to use all your analytical skills as well. That is number two. Number three, you will get a chance to use multiple forecasting tools and techniques part of the demand planning. So this is the role which validates and then signs off and releases the demand forecast, which becomes the reference for rest of all the activities I am going to explain within supply chain. Now you would have understood how crucial this job is, and if you are a demand planner listening to this video, you can pat yourself on your shoulder because you are shouldering this entire engine within the supply chain. That's great. So the demand planning now releases the demand forecast. That demand forecast goes as an input to the supply planning. So what supply planning does is use the demand forecast, convert that into requirement of raw materials. Even the supply planner does an analytics to understand what kind of increase and decrease has happened, and they will give insights into the supply of raw material required and then completes this report and shares this with the sourcing team, which is the second activity. So the sourcing operations, once they receive the output, that is the demand forecast and the supply related input from the supply planning team, their job is to ensure whether the supplier capacity is there, number one. Number two, ensure to release the purchase orders to the suppliers, follow up on the purchase orders to receive the product on time at the manufacturing facility. In a nutshell, the job of the sourcing team is to ensure the availability of material at the right time, at the point of use, at the right quantity it is required by manufacturing. So manufacturing is the internal customer of sourcing, and I've used the term called point of use, POU. That is the place where the raw material is going to get consumed or converted to the final product. Till there, the responsibility lies with sourcing team. The role is typically called as buyer. So a buyer is responsible for sourcing material on a day-to-day basis and making it available at point of use. Sounds so simple, but this is one role where the firefighting is at the peak. The reason is the uncertainties surrounding the supply chain impacts the sourcing role. When I say uncertainty, no matter how good you estimate the demand, there will be always ups and downs. The impact or the one team which shoulders the complete uncertainty is the sourcing team. So they should have the good business acumen to have the rapport with the suppliers to perform even at those uncertainties to get the products on time at the point of use. Okay. Apart from this, the sourcing team also takes care of new product introductions. They take care of new supplier onboarding. They also take care of supplier performance management. So the key role which we are talking about in operations is the buyer. So once the product is now made available at the point of use, the third operations role is the manufacturing operations. The excitement of manufacturing operations lies within the four walls of the manufacturing facility. Within the manufacturing shop floor, each second counts. So this is where lean manufacturing, Six Sigma, theory of constraints, all these tools, whatever you learn about, the best place to utilize is in the manufacturing role. The excitement is within the shop floor, within the four walls, conversion of the raw materials into the finished product. So you will exactly see the conversion before your eyes, how the raw material is getting converted into the finished product. So the next one is the distribution operations. So the objective of distribution operations is to distribute the finished product to the customer. So the job starts with taking custody of the finished product and then delivering it at the hands of the customer. This complete thing comes under distribution. There is one small call out here. The raw material which is procured from the supplier, which is taken care by sourcing, it is stored somewhere inside the manufacturing facility. That as well, in most cases, comes under the distribution team's portfolio. In some cases, it is taken care by the manufacturing facility itself. That is the one small call out here. But in general, distribution operations takes care of taking custody of the finished goods, and then they take care of all the activities involved in delivering the product to the customer. Now, distribution operations have two different functions within: a warehousing and transportation. Same like how I said for planning, here as well, in most organizations, you will have a separate warehousing team and separate transportation teams. What is the role of a warehousing function? Receive the product, that is, take custody of the finished goods, store them, and then fulfill them depending on the customer's requirement. So the job starts with taking custody, managing the inventory, upkeep of the stock, all the safety related upkeep will come into their picture, and then once an order has come, you make the product ready to ship and then give a handshake to the transportation team, whose job starts from there. So the transportation team will take the product, make all the documentation ready, arrange for the truck, take it to the customer and get it delivered. The key objective of transportation team is on-time delivery to the customer. And all the teams, that is sourcing, manufacturing and distribution, has a common target: inventory management and quality. This explains the operations happening at sourcing, manufacturing and distribution. I'll quickly summarize what kind of excitement and what you can expect from this role. If you are a person who likes to work with lot of data, who wants to use more of tools and techniques but still associate yourself with the product, then you need to get into supply chain planning. If you are a person who wants to handle lot of pressure, who wants to be always on the field, but still you want to interact with a lot of people, you need to develop something new, then you need to get into sourcing. If you are excited about lean, Six Sigma, eliminating waste from the system, making each second count, if you are that kind of person, a person who's process oriented, who always have a inclination towards process excellence, and also who wants to closely associate yourself with the product, then you need to get into manufacturing operations. Only a manufacturing shop floor can give you that experience. And if you're a person who wants to make an impact on the customer experience, you need to get into distribution operation. Every member within the supply chain has an impact on customer, but even a small miss by the distribution team will leave a negative mark on the organization. So this explains, not fully, but to a level, I've given you a flavor of each role. If you have any specific questions, you can obviously write down on the comment section. I would be able to give more information around that role. Now I'm going to give you some key recommendations which will really help you shape up your supply chain career. Number 1, impact of sector in your supply chain career. You may even think, how a sector will impact my supply chain career. If you see this supply chain model, we talked about distribution operations. Now a distribution operations happening in different sectors in a very, very different way. So what happens in an automotive industry? Let's take in car manufacturing. Once the car is ready, a distribution operations role is to take that car, put it into a truck, get it to a dealer, and customer comes and picks the car from the dealer. So basically the dealership is your point of sale. Now the same distribution operations, now think on a fast moving consumer goods industry. What happens there? Millions of outlets sell FMCG products. So the distribution operations to move the product from the manufacturing facility to those millions of outlets. Can you see the glaring difference on the same role? Moving cars from a manufacturing facility to handful of dealers versus moving FMCG products from the manufacturing facility to million outlets. These two roles are completely different. Similar way, I'll give you one more example of manufacturing operation. Manufacturing of a biscuit versus manufacturing of a car. In a manufacturing of a biscuit, you will work on handful of ingredients, use processing technologies and machineries to convert those ingredients into the final product, which is a biscuit. In a car manufacturing, you have thousands of parts. You will assemble them to manufacture a car. The manufacturing operations in a biscuit versus a car is completely different. That is the reason you should first decide on the sector before even you decide on the function you want to start your career on. Number 2, supply chain, the buzzword. It is great. Supply chain is the buzzword. Since supply chain is the most wanted job everywhere, most of the job descriptions add supply chain word to each and every job within the supply chain. For example, if you see this, a sourcing job, a manufacturing job, a distribution job, a planning job, everything is called as a supply chain job. In reality, if you are doing sourcing, you are doing a sourcing role. If you are doing manufacturing, you are doing manufacturing role. If you are doing distribution, you are doing a distribution role. If you are doing planning, you are doing a planning role. The job descriptions read all these roles as a supply chain role. So my recommendation is, before you take any job change or start your supply chain career, you should exactly understand those differences. Keep aside what your title says, but you should be clear what you are getting into. So when you can call yourself as a supply chain professional is when you get hands-on on most of these operational roles, what I have explained you in this video. The third one is where to start. This is one of the most asked questions. If you want to build a supply chain career, what you can do is you can start anywhere within this role and slowly increase your portfolio. For example, you can start on sourcing, and then after 2-3 years in the next jump you take in probably the distribution operations also part of your portfolio, and you grow on, and finally you will reach a supply chain position which would like a vice president in supply chain, where that role will oversee the end to end of supply chain. So your goal is to reach such position. But the day one, my recommendation is, I have given some excitement factors in each of these operations role. You take a decision basis that once you serve 1 or 2 years in that role, you can either specialize on that role, or you can then take some more into your portfolio. That is absolutely your choice. So these are the 3 key recommendations which would help shape your supply chain career. You have any follow-up questions? If you want any more details related to the supply chain career, feel free to drop a note in the comment section down to this video. I would be glad to answer those for you. Thank you so much. I would meet you again with yet another video in Supply Chain Way.